Hi, I'm doing my presentation on the sharing systems of Airbnb and Uber. So first I'm going to start off with a little bit of description and history about both. Airbnb was founded in 2000, officially in 2008 by Brian Chesky, Nathan Blecharczyk, and Joe Gebbia, as you can see on the left here. Although the idea was first born in 2007 when they could not afford their rent in San Francisco, which is very expensive, and decided to put an air mattress in their living room with the idea of a bed and breakfast. And it began to work, and they began to be able to rent it out for some money. So they went full forth with the idea, and it was created with the idea of providing short-term living solutions for people who are unable to book a hotel, whether it be because of limited availability or pricing. Previously, you would have used travel websites or a travel agent to book your stay. And Uber. It was founded in 2009 as UberCab by Garrett Camp, the guy on the left, and Travis Kalanick on the right. Most of the brains behind it, as Travis will say, was Garrett. However, Travis had a much broader background in business and startups, and that was very beneficial to their partnership. And really, the idea started as something simple. They asked, what if you could request a ride from your phone? What if you no longer had to use taxis and go out and try and flag them down? You would just be able to have it from your phone. They would come and pick you up and you'd be on your way. And now we know that is what has happened. So the differences and similarities between them both. The biggest similarity that I think is the most interesting fact, honestly, about them and why I wanted to do this was because both have become the largest in their industry without owning any actual assets. Airbnb owns no property, and Uber owns no taxis. And they both started from very simple ideas that have transformed industries in ways that you couldn't have guessed really when they had first began almost 10 years ago. However, they did have different starts. Airbnb funded themselves by selling a breakfast cereal that you can see on the right here, Obama O's and Captain McCain's. And they were able to sell 800 boxes at $40 each for about $30,000, and that's how they funded their initial website. Whereas Uber was funded by the founding partner, Travis Kalanick, who, as I said earlier, had more startup experience, and he sold his Red Swoosh for 19 million the year before. Data information and processing. So Airbnb, the data that they use is mostly the property information, and that comes from users who are hosting their unit for the guests. And most data is processed fairly simply, and most of it is just text or images that are used. However, something cool about the images is that when they're uploaded by users, AI helps categorize them. And when I say that, I mean it helps categorize them by room. So it'll take each picture, analyze it, decide is this a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom, and then find all the other pictures that match with it and put them together. And they also try to organize it in a way whereas when you are looking for a place to stay and you're looking at the pictures, they kind of slide through in a way that almost makes it feel like you're walking through the house. And I think that's a very interesting use of AI that is not necessarily very prominent to everybody that uses the website. And another interesting thing that they use is they use a lot of data analytics to help host price according to the market, and it's a smart pricing feature. And you can see the image on the left. Basically, that's what a host would see. But for example, if you take New Year's Eve, it's high demand night, and guests tend to book more in advance. And location takes a lot of play into this, and supply constrained markets get bookings way further in advance than what they call holiday markets, like South Beach, who have lots of hotels and other things available. And by studying the arrival processes for check-in dates and locations over the past couple years, their smart pricing accounts for the early demand and is able to generate a pricing policy that allows hosts to optimally update their prices. And this is very interesting and useful for the host to help them get the most out of their property. And it also has many IoT applications. While Airbnb doesn't directly offer these or necessarily endorse them themselves, a lot of things such as smart locks that you can reset for guests, doorbell cameras for guest safety, remote thermostats, cameras to monitor unusual activity, and mobile garage access. All of these things have been improved by the existence of Airbnb. And now Airbnb hosts are way more likely to use those than your average homeowner because it will help them be able to control their unit remotely. And Uber. So their data mostly comes from users, and it's either the users who request rides from drivers and drivers who are available for a pickup. And from what I was able to find, is that riders and drivers are matched mostly by proximity. And what that means is if a driver is free and closest, you'll most likely match with them. But however, if a driver is dropping someone off near you, you could match with them if an available driver would not be closer. The algorithm itself is protected, of course, so I was not able to get too many details, but everything I could find said that it was mostly based upon proximity. Now, Uber does use a lot of data analysis, and now this is more of an in-house thing that they use, and it's through their data science workbench that they've built. And now you can see on the image on the left here, it is a little dense and a little confusing. However, it is a good representation of what the process is. And they have millions of rides over 80 countries every single day. So that means they have an enormous amount of data, a lot of which is rather meaningless in its current state because there's not a lot of integrity to it. And basically what it does is it centralizes all the data and tools that data scientists need to perform exploration, preparation, analyses, models, workflow scheduling, and collaborating in a single web-based graphic UI. And everybody across Uber uses it and is able to use their different products that they use with it. And they use it a lot for pricing, safety, fraud reduction and detection, and navigation, among other in-ride services. So, as I was saying before, both of them really utilize the user's own personal assets that allow them to conduct business and acquire a lot of their information from the users, but they do a lot of the heavy lifting on their end with AI and machine learning. They both make heavy use of analytics and AI to help them increase profits and usability of their websites overall. Display and communication. So for Airbnb, what you see here on the left is a picture of the home screen. So information is communicated through two main ways: pictures of properties and description of properties. Now on the homepage, you don't necessarily have the property descriptions, but you have this, which is the same idea. They have their list where it says Airbnb Plus, explore more, their homes around the world, and then it has a brief slideshow of pictures of units with their pricing, location, and the name of it. And they also have a search bar in the upper left that is very nice. However, one thing I would say is that the search bar maybe isn't the most obvious for people who are less tech savvy to use. And I think maybe some sort of dedicated menu on the homepage with links to where you want to go, what kind of trip, when you want to go, might be a little easier for those who are less tech savvy to use. And for Uber, information, it's pretty simple here. It's mostly communicated to the driver through requests from the users. And then the driver's information is relayed to the users, such as their location and their ETA. I believe one thing that could benefit from, or that Uber could do to really benefit the people who use their service a lot, would be able to have a list that is a favorite drivers list. And basically, think that you work in the city and you take an Uber to work every single day and you take one every day home. And if you could have the same person take you, it might be way easier if you say you want to make a stop, or they might know your preferred route, or they might know where you prefer to be picked up, or just, any other little things that might come between your day-to-day travel. So there's really not a lot of similarities in displaying and communicating, except that a lot of it comes from the user and is relayed through the user. But Uber, most of it is the information is more dynamic, whereas you're only getting certain things after requests from a user, or you make a request yourself. While Airbnb is what I consider more static, whereas it's uploaded once and it doesn't rely on an action to relay that information to you. It's always there and it's not going to change unless it's done so by the user themselves. So human factors. Airbnb is actually very highly regarded as one of the best user interface designs in the tech industry, and it's nice because it's very user-friendly and simple for people who are very familiar with modern websites, and even for those who aren't, I think it's still very straightforward. I mean, you have here, let's just scroll down the home page a little bit on the right, but you have homes for your kind of trip. Are you going for work, or are you going with your family on vacation? Then it has their top rated experiences. So maybe you don't know where you want to go, but you see something here like, oh, I'd like to do that, and now I'll find something else there. So I think it's pretty easy to search for what you need. As I said before, the search bar isn't necessarily the best, but it does work well. It just requires a little bit more sifting through of information, and they do have a lot of curated lists that offer you a lot of options that you might not have considered, like in the previous slide where it had homes from around the world, and here the top rated experiences. In Uber, their user interface is very simple and clean, and on the right here you see it. In the middle is what you come to right away, and it's where to. And it's very obvious and easy to use. I think all the information is very straightforward, and I think it's very nice that you're able to see where all the drivers are that are going to come pick you up. And they finally added the opportunity to tip drivers, which is very nice, and the app is as universally available as it can be to anybody with a phone. As far as comparing and contrasting, they're both very user-friendly interfaces that are well regarded within each community. The information is very clear, and I think Airbnb could follow in Uber's footsteps with more of a universal menu. But again, it may be something that detracts from the overall design of their site. So as far as information professionals in both of them, Airbnb, one position I found was for a front-end software engineer, and they're mostly focused on the user's interaction with the site. So they're mostly concerned with web design, responsive UI, and things of that nature. They work with designers and data scientists to build and maintain good code. And the specific education isn't listed, but it's many of the things that you would learn while obtaining a CS or IT degree, such as web design skills and just being familiar with modern programming technology in general. And another one is a data scientist. And while this one's education wasn't necessarily listed, it would be more of a master's or PhD level knowledge of it. But basically what they're doing is a lot of what we've been talking about in this course, and it's turning data into useful knowledge. And it basically is able to take this vast amount of data that they have and be able to communicate them in ways that are understandable and digestible for them to be able to use and make their platform better overall. As far as Uber, I found another position for a front-end engineer, which is the same as it was at Airbnb, although the specific frameworks you use might be different. It's essentially all the exact same requirements. And then the other position they had was the user experience researcher. And basically, they just conduct studies on user experience and gather data and analyze it and try and find ways in which the user experience is lacking or doing good, and fix or accentuate any of those areas. And a lot of the jobs themselves between both of these, between Airbnb and Uber, are very similar. When I was looking, they pretty much all offered the same positions. Now, as far as social issues, Airbnb, they've had issues with racism and discrimination against guests. And basically, as this quote here I found from an article, and it was a Harvard study that showed renters with black-sounding names were less likely to receive a booking through the site. And then in June, an Airbnb host in North Carolina canceled a booking on a black person that sent her a slew of racist insults. They are working to try and fix this, but I will be discussing a study that I found later that goes into it a little more. And they also have had lots of legal issues, and a lot of it was basically in the needs to just defining what a hotel is and the permits to operate them in New York City. And they were subpoenaed, and there's a big thing there. And a lot of things that landlords are doing are literally evict tenants that are renting out their property for profit. And San Francisco had tax issues where they didn't require hosts to pay local hotel taxes, but they quickly agreed to change that. And Uber, they've had a lot of issues with sexual harassment from inside and outside. From inside, it was from a former Uber engineer who was harassed by former coworkers, senior engineers, and that HR actually did nothing in response to the multiple claims she made, and she was also denied promotions and raises in retaliation for speaking out against it. And as well as I found a study by CNN that found 103 drivers were accused of sexual assault in the past 4 years from Uber, and they don't have publicly available data for the number of sexual assault by rideshare companies, but CNN was able to gather the interview from in-depth review of police reports, court records, and databases. And they've tried to make changes with their Safe Ride program, but at the end of the day, you're pretty much hitchhiking with a stranger. Now, they both had their issues from their lifetime, and I assume they will continue to have a little bit, but Uber has had much more issues and poor publicity overall. As far as access, for Airbnb, most obstacles are going to come from comprehensibility and usability, and that really relies on the user being able to comfortably use modern technology, being familiar with modern websites and all that. And for those who aren't, I think a realistic solution would be very clear and easy to find directions, kind of like the menu I was describing, that is very detailed but simple. It doesn't have a lot of jargon or like pictures or fancy design. It's more just like, this is the information, now take it. And as far as Uber, you have to have a phone to use it, and you kind of have to be comfortable with modern applications. And one thing that I was thinking about was like, oh, like what about seniors using it? Because a lot of them have smartphones and they use taxis a lot because a lot of them don't drive or can't drive. So I actually was able to find this that they do, and they have the senior view mode that you can see over to the right here. And on the left is what it normally looks like for people who don't select it, but on the right it has the senior view mode, which is much easier and clearer on what to do. And they're very identical in terms of access, and the biggest hurdle is just really your technological literacy. And people who don't really have the best technological literacy are then people mostly affected by it. And as follows scholarly reports, the first one I found was racial discrimination in the sharing economy. And this one was that guests with distinctively African American names were 60% less likely to be accepted relative to guests with white names. And there was a lot of other data describing, it was a very dense study on how different races are discriminated against. And their biggest result suggested that their current design choice facilitates discrimination because of the fact that they require you to have a picture of everything, of yourself on your profile. And as well as I looked at the impact of Airbnb on the hotel industry, and it was just asking what is Airbnb's effect on serving as substitutes for hotel stays and the impact on the bottom line of affected hotels. And it found that while it's very uneven and lower end hotels are really affected the most, while higher end chains are not really affected in the same way. As far as Uber, so one I looked at was a disruptive change in the taxi business, and basically this looked at the efficiency between Uber and taxis, and it basically found that Ubers are incredibly more efficient, and that drivers spend more time with drivers in their car and driving more miles with passengers in their car. And then the social cost of Ubers, which kind of goes with that as well, and it basically talks about how it's fundamentally altering the car hire sector, whereas you have a lot of taxi drivers going away, and now it's just self-contractors essentially that are running all of this. And it's very interesting study that goes into grave detail about how Uber is affecting the car hire sector in ways on which they can help to fix it, but at the same time we really don't know how. And that was it. Here's all my references, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.